Welcome to LNK TV. I'm your host, Dale Johnson. This could very well be the last time that I have a conversation at this table with Michael Despain as Lincoln's fire chief. He retires March 6th, ending a 32-year career. Did I do my math?
35 in dog years.
35-year career. The last 4, got that right, in Lincoln. Yeah. You started here in July of 2016, coming from Clovis, California, city of 95,000 or so, give or take.
110 or so, yeah.
6.5 miles from Fresno. Were you always a California kid?
Yep.
Born and raised California?
Born in California, raised a little bit in my dad was in the Air Force, so you had to kind of move around a little bit. So a little bit of time in Texas, a little bit of time we actually lived in the Philippines for a little while when I was younger, but for the most part, formative years, my career has all been in California.
Surfing? Can you still do a little surfing? No?
I've done surfing before, but I would call it surfing. Surfers would not call it surfing, but I've done some surfing before, yeah.
Did you always want to be a firefighter when you grew up?
You know, I think growing up, I didn't even know what a firefighter was, and it was probably maybe high school before I even knew that was a job to have. And it sounds strange that everyone knows firefighters, but where I came from was a very small community, maybe 300 or 400 people in the community, farm town. And so you just weren't around those type of jobs, so you just didn't see it. So it was kind of unique how I kind of fell into it many years ago, but at the end of the day, where I grew up, there was no Boy Scouts, there was no really, outside of school organized events. And so when the opportunity did come years later to join, I kind of saw it as community service or a chance to do something that I didn't get a chance to do growing up. Boy Scouts is an example. So to me, it was like an outreach for Boy Scouts is kind of what it felt like.
So what did you have your eye on if it wasn't firefighting?
Well, believe it or not, my mother was involved with the district attorney's office for many years, and so I was around law enforcement all the time. So really, I thought I was going to go into law enforcement. And in fact, I did that. My first job out of high school, permanent job, was with the Tulare County Sheriff's Office. So I worked there for a little while before I realized this is the job that I wanted to do, not the law enforcement job. And so was able to pivot quickly and get in there early.
Made the right choice, I think,
I
Chief.
think so. My mom was a little nervous at first, but I talked to her today. She's feeling a little bit better about it. So,
the morning you announced, back in early November, you and I talked, and you said the timing was right for you to make this announcement, right for you, right for your family. What was right about the timing?
Well, part of it is that, this is a tough job, and not that everybody's job isn't tough. Your job is tough too, but in the sense that, the hours that are required and you really don't have downtime. There's really not a off day. It's just, the phones and emails and things are ticking all the time. So you kind of carry that around for a little while. And I had seen many people in the industry that when they get to the end of their career, they might have stayed a little too long, and compassion fatigue kind of sets in, and maybe health reasons. And I had just told myself I never wanted to be that chief. I never wanted to be that person, like stay too long. I'd rather go a little too early than too long. So at the end of the day, I could feel that kind of starting to creep in. And I think also there was this thought that there were things that you wanted to accomplish and help the organization move forward. I think we've done that. I think it's positioned well even after I'm gone to continue that forward motion. And there's also some other things that my family maybe made sacrifices for years ago that they kind of want to have their time with me while we're still young enough to travel and healthy. And I want to make sure that I'm a good husband and I'm a good father and those things too. So all those things kind of blend together.
You also told me that LFR is in a good place. Unpack that. What did you mean in a good place?
Well, no organization's perfect, and I would never, ascribe to the fact that they're good to go forever. I think there's still work to do, but what I feel like the staff has experienced what success looks like, and they like it, and so they want to keep moving forward, and so they've developed their skills and abilities, and we've just got great people in positions like utility players that are covering a lot of different aspects of the job that sometimes are tough for any one person to cover, and so together the team is gelling, and I think they're working together well. So the community, we've seen it in the outcomes, and they know what outcomes are, how that's important. So I don't have to preach it to them anymore. They preach it to me if I'm not doing it right. So I just think they're well positioned. They'll carry it forward, and the community's going to have a good fire department moving forward.
Back to that conversation we had in early November when you first announced, you used the word trust when we talked, and
Right.
leaving LFR with a deeper sense of trust between administration and first responders on the street, deeper trust between administration and the union, and a deeper trust between LFR and the community. Did I paraphrase that correctly?
Yeah,
That's your feeling?
I think so. When we look at when I first came in, I think there was some strife in some certain areas, and I would use the term, we're all warriors with opinions. They're all passionate about what they want to do and what they think is the best. The beauty of our process was we brought in people like you. We brought in stakeholders. We brought in the customer, and said, before we argue about what we think our kingdom should look like, let's talk to the customer. So the customers came in and gave us a sense of we're responsible to them. We're responsible for outcomes, not just what's better for you or for I as labor and management or City Hall and the fire department. So that was the first step, and that was the important step moving forward, because now the conversations are different. The how we solve problems are a little different, because everyone sees that 3 steps down the road, how is this going to impact the customer? Because we bring stakeholders back about once a year and say, here's what we're doing right, here's what we're still struggling with, we're still responsible to the customer, and so that frames the argument and maybe tamps down some of the opinions that don't align well with what the customer wants.
Now that your time is finite on the job, what is on your shorter to-do list between now and March 6th?
The list was pretty big of all the things I wanted to accomplish, and the days go by a little bit faster than we thought. But part of our look as are what are some small items, budget-related items that I can do the work now and then package it so that the interim chief or the next fire chief or whatever is ready to go. The homework's been done. So we've got certain things that are probably minor, not probably too exciting for the listeners. But Station 17, the land for Station 17 is one of those things that are high on the priority list, and the reason is if we pick it up now, it's going to be considerably cheaper than it will be 5 or 10 years from now whenever the time comes to open that station, and we don't have the same problem with trying to handle a community that may or may not want the fire station because they were there first and they don't want the fire station there. This way we kind of plant the flag early, and so it's less effort for the fire department and maybe the mayor's office to try and sell that to the community. Even though the station may not be here for many years, if we could secure the land, that's one. And then there's some other minor stuff is positioning for the budget requests that will come in for the next biennium. But we have to do that now because the mayor wants to make sure council has much more of a feel for where the budget's going to land and the priorities earlier. So where we usually start this in, maybe April for the budget, we're starting it next week. So.
When you first announced and we talked, you mentioned, and I appreciated the sensitivity that you expressed at that time, and that is that because my question was going to be, because you are so well connected in the firefighting world around this country, have you heard from colleagues? Had you heard from someone? That was a question I asked you back in November. You now have fewer than a month in number of days at work.
Right.
Have you corresponded with anyone, or has anyone reached out to you about this opening?
Yeah, so the early announcement, 1 or 2 phone calls, not a lot, because the flyer, the advertisement had come out, and that's only been out maybe about 2-3 weeks now. So now we're starting to get a little bit more emails and phone calls, people that are somewhat interested. But the process will be a little vague or a little quiet for a little while because they contracted with a private recruiting company that will do that. And so for some people, they have to be very quiet about their interest and their intent to apply because they are with agencies now, maybe as the fire chief, that as soon as their name comes out that they're applied, then there's a little bit of pressure back home of, are you leaving us? And, loyalty, and especially if they apply and don't get it, there's always a little bit of pressure there. So what they try and do is do as much confidential on the front end And then once the mayor is down to the top maybe 2 or 3, 4 candidates, then there will be an open house. There'll be a little city hall kind of open forum. And that's because they're close enough to making a job offer that they want to make sure the community has a little bit of a chance to weigh in. So they can't go all the way to the end confidentially, but they're going to get as far as they can before they do that. So.
Using your example, yourself as an example, you said the timing was right when you decided to pursue Lincoln. Had it been sooner, couldn't. Had it been later, maybe could.
Maybe
so
not.
it's all about timing.
Yeah, and I was fortunate. I was in a position where I could be very upfront with my community and my city manager and the labor group that this is what we were doing. I had a daughter looking to go to school, college out of state, and so we were, we knew we were. Everybody knew we were leaving the state. We just didn't know where we were going to land. So Lincoln was not a problem to be out in the open on that. But again, the first time Lincoln applied, I wasn't available. It wasn't a good time. I wasn't even available. I wasn't even in country to apply. I was traveling abroad, so I wasn't able to apply. So it was kind of fortunate the way it worked out. All things kind of happen for a reason. So everyone that's applying is going to go through that same mental exercise of, is the family okay? Is the timing right? Is it a good fit for us and for the mayor?
How introspective are you, Chief, when you're sitting there quietly thinking about what you accomplished in 4 years? Rigs, engines, trucks, personnel, stations, attitude, momentum. Do you really, if you don't pat yourself on the back, I'll pat yourself on the back, and a lot of other people in the community would too, but do you, that's really awesome and awe-inspiring,
Right.
in my opinion.
Well, we're certainly proud of those accomplishments, but I got to be honest that as the fire chief, a lot of time you're the high-profile person, but there was so many people that did work before I got there. There were people doing work behind the scenes. Much of that work, I think, would have happened eventually. Maybe we squeezed the time frame down a little bit to happen a little bit faster, but a lot of those things were critical needs, so they were going to happen, happen eventually. But what was really nice is, and I look back to other organizations I've worked for, when I look back, I don't remember how many fire engines I bought with other agencies. I honestly, I couldn't tell you how many I bought, or maybe a station opening now and then, because that was a big deal, but it's always the relationships. And so I have relationships with friends that I worked with, coworkers from 1984. And from 1990 and from the 2000s and from different agencies. And so that will be, I think, the legacy when I leave, is that to watch people within LFR go through their career and move forward with different challenges and different ranks, and then pay it forward to other people coming up behind them. So yes, I am introspective a lot. It's definitely an emotional decision to leave, but at the end of the day, some of the fire stations and apparatus, probably not the highlight. It's not what I think I'll be proudest of. It'll be coming back, a year later or 2 years later, and seeing who's moved forward and what's happening within the organization from the up and coming leaders. Mm-hmm. It's going to be exciting.
So fewer than a month of working days left for you
Yes.
at the time of this conversation.
Yeah.
What do you want to do first?
Well, the first thing will be a little bit of vacation time to just decompress and kind of figure out what we're doing, because even though as a city employee I get vacation time, it's very rare, and my wife would remind me of this, that you're able to take a week off and just not answer a phone or an email. Just it couldn't happen. And so, not that this time will be exactly that way, but I think it'll be considerably less as we kind of the glide path. So the first week or two of legitimately just taking a true vacation and just kind of rest a little bit. But the reality is, I really don't see it walking out the door and not and never being back. I think I'll have quite a bit of input or influence with LFR over the next coming months until the new fire chief comes in, just kind of helping with something that, hey, what do we do with that policy and why did we come up with that? Just helping the team that's there, so we just don't leave them kind of cold turkey. And there may be some things that I can help them with, maybe just as the concerned citizen, advocate for them at the legislature for some bills that we were trying to get through to help Lincoln, because I'm, still have some expertise and maybe some passion about that. And just because you're retired doesn't mean that, you kind of forgot everything you knew. So kind of keep engaged to the degree that you can for a period of time.
And what will transition look like?
Well, transition will be no more 60-hour work week, so that's going to be the first one. But it'll still be a little bit of touching bases with the team at LFR until the new fire chief gets in, and hopefully a resource to the new fire chief to help he or she kind of get their feet underneath them quicker, so they can hit the ground running and doing the things that they want to do to keep it moving forward.
Does Mayor Gaylor Baird and you and others who are involved in this, do you want to have a chief hired by March 6th? Is that physically even possible?
Well, that would be nice, but it's not.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
interim
We
then?
would be fortunate to be maybe April. I mean, that would be really fast as April. So, and just looking at their process with other department directors, how long some of that process takes. Public utility director actually announced before I did, and we still don't have that one filled. And the health department has been kind of a challenge to fill, and this position was a challenge to fill back when they filled it. So, so we're cautiously optimistic that we will have it by April.
So I'm guessing by your answer, an interim then would.
Yeah, we've identified one of the assistant chief will step up and hold
Okay.
the fort, just because he knows he's intimately involved with basically everything I do every day. He'll hold it for a little while, but the mayor's got to make a decision fairly quickly on if this is going to be a longer term position. Then maybe there's some discussions. I don't think the decision has been made, but do they want to rotate that a little bit to let some other members have some experience, kind of sitting in the seat for a little bit? Maybe they're interested in the process. We don't know. It's there's kind of what I think will happen, but then at the end of the day, people have to make those decisions for themselves, whether they apply or not.
I've talked to retired firefighters, a lot of them, and it's about a 50-50 split. And they tell me that when they hear the sirens go off, when they see a fire engine, a fire rig go by, they get pangs. They wish they could do it again. Are you going to be that kind of guy?
Well, I would say this: there's not a retiree that alive that would tell you they have that feeling at 2 a.m.
No.
So no.
Has
It's
to be
always
between 9 and
daylight
5.
and sunshine, and they got a little bit of free time. It's they don't feel that all the time, but I think that's just built into any firefighter. It's in your blood, because after 35 years of hearing that bell ring and responding, you can't just turn it off overnight. But what I can say is that I will become more of a customer of the fire service than maybe leading it, and so I look forward to not using their services for a long time. But when they do, I'll have a different eye on customer service and outcomes and that kind of stuff, and they may not want to hear that, so it'll be interesting.
Chief, one of the best decisions I ever made was to say yes to your invitation to me to be a stakeholder,
Right.
and to join the other citizens on that task force and be involved and to immerse ourselves. And I can't recall ever being told no in terms of, can we do this, or can you get this information for me? We went into stations, we went into rigs, we did ride-alongs. We really were allowed to go anywhere that we asked or thought that would be appropriate in our decision-making. And as a result of that, you have changed the way I see Lincoln Fire and Rescue forever. I will never look at a rig the same way again, a fire station the same way, a firefighter the same way again. Knowing what he or she has to go through, knowing the training and the expectations that you have of them and they have of themselves. Paramedics the same way. We took some paramedic training. I suited up, went into flames, went into heat, and really got a sense of personal experience. And as a result of that, I'm changed, and I tell everyone that I have an opportunity to about the quality of the men and women that make up Lincoln Fire and Rescue. So I want to thank you very, very much for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for
invitation.
offering to step up to do that position. There's a lot of communities where people don't care. They don't want to step up. They just just show up and solve my problem, and I don't care what happens on the back end. So we're fortunate that Lincoln connects with the fire department as a community, and they have an opinion, that's for sure. But those people that dedicated that time and energy to come to those meetings and make a decision, and then in terms of opening the doors to the people, I mean, the reality is we have to be transparent. One, we have an obligation to it, but just think of it as a community member. If your government said, I don't want you to see this information, minus patient information or a criminal, but if we don't want you to see our budget, we don't want you to know how we do it, he would be suspect. And so at the end of the day, that's not how we operate. You're our boss, and our job is to make sure our boss is happy. So,
Yeah.
hey, thank you, Dale.
Have a great
Appreciate
after
it.
firefighter
Yeah,
life,
thank you.
Chief. It's
And
been a pleasure.
Thank you, Lincoln, for opening arms and letting us come in, and Lincoln Fire and Rescue for the chance to wear this patch and this badge for a while. It's been an honor. It'll be kind of an honor moving forward, and it's been a great time. And I'm not necessarily saying goodbye forever, just maybe goodbye at 60 hours a week. So thank you.
And we hope to continue these conversations on LNK, whether it's through the interim, whether it's with the future chief. That's our goal. The invitation will be given to the Chief Despain's successor. And so we will talk to you then with the new fire chief, whether it's an interim or a new hire, when we continue on LNK TV. I'm your host, Dale Johnson.